Welcome, astrology lovers, to Astrology Hub TV. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Amanda Pua Walsh, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Astrology Hub. And Astrology Hub TV is a weekly show dedicated to helping you explore your connection to the cosmos and how this connection can help you live a more empowered, fulfilled, and vibrant life. We're here live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you'd like to receive Facebook messages every time that we're live so you don't miss a show, you can sign up for live alerts. We're putting that link in the chat and we're putting that link above this video as well. So today, I am so thrilled to be here with Sasha Benedetti. She is a life coach and astrologer. And today, Sasha is extending all of us an invitation. That invitation is to learn about the feminine mysteries and become more intimate with your heart through the Venus cycle. This episode is for you if you're interested in deepening your relationship with your heart, if you are interested in having tools to live more authentically, and if you're interested in transformation and want to work consciously with the energies of transformation, which are basically the feminine mysteries. So welcome. We are so happy to have you here. Before we dive in with Sasha, I just wanted to invite you all to do a quick centering. So I know we're all so busy running around. This episode, it's really important that you feel as centered and grounded and receptive as possible so that you can receive all the wisdom that Sasha has to share. So just go ahead, if you can, if you're not in your car, if you're not driving, if you can, just go ahead and close your eyes for just a moment. And just take a deep breath with us here, breathing in and out. Just tuning into the vibration of gratitude for this moment, for this opportunity to share with each other, to learn, to grow, and to deepen our connection with ourselves, with each other, and with the universe that is all around us and here to support us on this journey. Doing your best to leave behind everything that came up until this moment, the rest of your day, all the experiences that you've had, just leaving those for a moment. You can pick them right back up when we're done with this episode. And doing your best to let go of anything that's coming after. We'll be here together for about 30 to 45 minutes. So just allowing yourself to be present for this time. Go ahead and exhale all your breath one more time. And we're going to take another deep breath together. Breathing in here and out. When you're ready, just go ahead and gently open up your eyes. Now I would love to introduce you to Sasha. Sasha has been walking the path of transformation and healing from an early age. She was exposed to the healing arts, meditation, and spirituality as a child, growing up in an intentional community. She's been doing massage, practicing meditation in the Buddhist tradition, and studying astrology and tarot for 25 years. Venus Rising Now is a synthesis of life coaching that draws upon astrology to support people in living from their heart and purpose, nourishing warm stone bodywork and offerings of wellness products from her online store. She's been living in the idyllic town of Sebastopol for almost 20 years and is grateful to be raising her preteen daughter there. And today we are going to be talking Venus. You're going to learn how watching Venus cross the sun is inspiration to understanding embodied astrology, how you can experience empowerment through following the Venus cycles, how you can uncover your feminine Dharma and why that actually even matters. And we'll talk about the current Venus cycle and what it's inviting you to explore. Sasha, it is such a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. I'm just brimming with excitement to be here with you and to be on Astrology Hub talking about Venus. It's one of my favorite conversations.
I love it. Yeah, we ask the astrologers what feels juicy for you now, and that's what we let guide the conversation. So we're talking Venus because this is juicy for you now, right, Sasha?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So before we dive in with you, Sasha, I wanted to ask the audience a question. Since we're talking Venus today, I wanted to just get a pulse from all of you. How many of you feel a deep connection with Venus? So maybe Venus is strong in your chart, or maybe you've just always been drawn to that Venusian energy. How many of you feel really connected with Venus? And then on the flip side, how many of you are just kind of like, I don't really know much about Venus. I'm interested in learning more, but I don't know that much about that energy or why I should even care. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat, and I'll be checking in with that later. But to get started, Sasha, would love to get to know you better. It sounds like you had a very, very interesting upbringing in a conscious community. I think that's so cool. I'd love to know and have you share with the audience how that has led, how growing up in that conscious community, maybe we can hear a little bit more about that, and then how that led you to studying astrology.
Yeah, thanks for opening up that conversation. I did have a very interesting childhood, and I was born to a hippie mom who was living in Northern California, and she became a single mom. My dad left, and so she was the struggling single mom with my brother and I. And, she was part of the whole environmental activist movement. She helped to clean up the oil spill in San Francisco Bay in 1971 with me strapped to her back. She was just like full on into making the world a better place. And then, when she had to really face being a single mom, she started seeking a way to raise her children, in community in a good way. And so she actually connected with this international community. They had centers in the 80s. They were all over the world. So they had centers all over the world. There was a lot of healers in this community. It wasn't actually so much that, alternative hippie vibe. It was more of chiropractors and practitioners, and it was a whole smorgasbord of people. So I was really exposed to a lot of different people who are on the path of becoming more conscious, and I lived in a number of these different centers, and I got to experience farming, sustainability. We raised all our own food and grew everything organic. So it was very interesting, and it also showed me how many different pathways there are to spirituality, and how there is this impulse in us to become better and to realize our potential. And then there's always can be a shadow with that, if we're not recognizing that shadow, then it can have negative effects. So it's almost getting to see very young that human impulse to become better, to transform, to become what we might call enlightened, and then also the ways that that cannot work out. So it wasn't perfect, and I got to see a lot around power dynamics that I think tuned me in a very early age to what is equity, what is justice, and also it gave me my first experiences of leadership. Being a 12, 13, 14-year-old and getting to ask to speak in front of 200, 300 people about my experiences in these leadership classes that they would run for youth. So it was a little bit of everything. And I even got to meet, there's a lot of eclectic people involved with this community. And I remember when I was probably about 12, I got to meet this woman who believed that she was from Venus. And at the time, I was 12, so I thought that was so weird. But, it was just like, it was like that. It was this kaleidoscope of people. Not everyone thought they were from Venus or anything, but very interesting. I remember the king of Zulu came to dinner when I was in my community in New Hampshire, and his whole, all the royalty. And so it was just this very interesting, unique upbringing that opened up my eyes to larger perspectives, which then later translated into me immediately seeing the value in something like astrology and having a map and having a way to shift our perspective out of our little ordinary world into something larger.
So you've been that it's fascinating, Sasha. It's amazing. I wanted to go down so many streams with you as you were speaking. It's like, whoa, tell us about the power dynamics. Whoa, tell us about the spiritual bypassing. You know, there's a lot of different ways we could have gone with that. So maybe we'll have another conversation another time. But so you've been studying astrology. You've been practicing astrology for 25 years. So how did it first get introduced to you, and how did you decide you wanted to go deep into that?
Yeah, it actually came through my body. So I was a raver girl in the early 90s. I was 21, and my friends would just pack up and be like, we're doing it. We're going to dance in the woods all night long. All the DJs would pack up their equipment. We'd cart it in and we'd dance under the stars all night long. It was just so wonderful. And one night I had this experience where I was dancing under the stars, and I was really actually watching this very specific star, and I had this heart opening where I actually felt my heart open, and I felt all of this bursting forth of forgiveness for many, many layers of my family and everything that had happened. It was incredibly profound. And it was a very unique experience. There was no drugs involved, but it kind of felt like that, you know. It was a very expanded experience, and it stayed with me for some time, where I just felt like my heart was so open and so pure. I felt this pure love that I knew that I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to understanding, you know, how to live from the heart. And of course, as these experiences happen, these peak experiences, they fade, life comes in, things get difficult. It's not like we stay in these, you know, states of, you know, bliss or expansion. And so I've always come back to that. And at that time, I was introduced to both meditation, and I had my first astrology reading. And so I began to study my own chart. And for many years, that's what I did, as I would study my own chart, and I would learn things about myself. And it's almost like the visual of the chart would show me different lessons when I was ready. So I'm incredibly intuitive, and I also have brought in the knowledge as well. But I think there's a lot, the way that I see an astrology chart is like a mandala, and it's a visual map that has so much of our potential in it, and that it is a way to engage with our path. And so sometimes if, you know, we just look at the chart and with soft eyes and have a bit of knowledge to understand what the symbols are, things will pop out. And usually I find those are very important, and they can be timely. And I've been learning from my chart for 25 years. I continue to have insights about my natal chart just from more intimacy.
Okay, so tell us about Venus. Why the emphasis and focus on Venus? Why do you feel like it's so important for all of us to connect with Venus?
Well, I have Venus very prominent in my chart. I have Venus and Scorpio in the first house. And so there's, you know, a way that the Venus energy and the energy of transformation have showed up my whole life. I've had a lot of challenges. I've had a lot of trauma. I've had a lot of time in what we might call the underworld of, you know, not feeling valued, feeling disconnected, not feeling beautiful, not feeling like I belong. You know, all of these initiations into that disconnect, and then me strengthening my ability to connect with myself, to source this love from deep within me, that no matter what my environment brings me, I've found this incredible limitless source of strength and love within me that always helps me to rise from these difficult experiences. And so I feel like that is, you know, the superpower of Venus and Scorpio. There's that strength that, you know, has been when I was younger was more challenging. And then, you know, with the midlife transits, there's such a beautiful initiation into our soul path. You know, 40, you know, is incredible as far as opening up new dimensions. So once I was crossing through those, I had more ability to get out of some of the suffering of my youth and really deepen into my wisdom. And it kind of goes right into what I was going to say in these talking points about my experience watching Venus cross the sun was my absolute catalyst into understanding the importance of Venus. So in astrology, you know, everything represents a mirror of our own mind, body, psyche. So we can look at a lot of different elements in astrology, and it's all interesting. It's this tapestry. But Venus is the heart. It's the way that we connect. It's how we connect to ourself, our body, our sensuality, and it's how we connect to others. It's love. And we might call that also the feminine, you know, in as far as an energy. We all have both. We all need both, not gender, but these energies of feminine and masculine being in this infinite dance together of these two polarities. And so in that feminine energy is that desire to connect. The masculine energy is more that desire to quest out. And they're always in this dance. So if we were to say, okay, you're going to have this life on earth, but there's going to be no connection, no love, no sensuality. Who wants to be here? Like, it's the heart, you know? So I feel like when we cut to the heart, boom, it can hold all of it. And so, you know, it's so powerful to drop into Venus because it's dropping us into our heart. And my direct experience of that, aside from my studies over the years of, you know, looking at a chart and seeing Venus on the natal chart, then beginning to open in the summer of 2012 to my experience of Venus in the sky. Because before that, I was not looking in the sky. I was looking at a lot of charts. I was looking at a lot of, you know, ephemeris notes, but I wasn't looking up. And so there was this moment where I knew Venus was going to cross the face of the sun in her beginning of her cycle with the sun, which only happens every 200 years. And I wanted to see this. So I got the eclipse glasses. I was a Montessori teacher at the time, and I got them for all my students. I was teaching K through 2, and we all had on our eclipse glasses, and we went out and I watched Venus track across the sun as this little black dot, which many of you may have also seen. You know, it was a very powerful time. It was 6 months before the end of the Mayan calendar. And there was just real sense of this shift and this transformation and this bringing in of what, you know, some people would call the return of the feminine, or, you know, just this shift in the energies on this planet being so dominating, and clearly us being on the brink of needing to really transform as a species on this planet. And so that was the energy of it as I was watching Venus. And I went to bed that night and I had the most powerful dream of my life. And in that dream, I wasn't seeing anyone. I was single at the time. I was divorced. That was part of my whole initiation. Pluto was on my moon in Capricorn. So I had an incredible initiation into the underworld through many things that happened through my daughter's birth and my divorce and losing my house and moving away to go teach. So I was really broken open in this very powerful place, which happens when we're in those kind of transformative experiences. We don't have our usual ego defenses, and we're more available in some ways for change. So I was in that place. That night after I watched Venus, I had this dream. And this lover came to me and we made love. And it was the fusion of the most erotic energy I had ever experienced, coupled with the deepest, sweetest love together. And I experienced it in my body in this dream. And that was it. That is the solar feminine. It's that fusion of the erotic radiance of life with the sweetness of the heart. So soon after I had this dream, I understood that there was this whole other level of astrology that I could understand that wasn't just about books. It was about the living sky, because I had this cellular transmission during that viewing of Venus. And I had recently shifted my meditation practice, which was more of a head practice. It was a lot of visualization, very wonderful, very blessed to have authentic teachers. But I had discovered a teacher who is doing more of a somatic meditation. So there's all these themes of dropping into the body, dropping from the head into the heart. And so because I was doing this somatic meditation, I thought, well, I want to do somatic astrology. What is that? So I Google somatic astrology. Up pops Adam Gainsbourg. And he has just written this book, The Light of Venus, which is all about the Venus cycle. And I went to his website, and it was that instantaneous recognition of, here is a teacher for me. This man has something very important for me. I immediately got the book, and that book has been an incredible guide through all of the Venus cycles since.
Amazing. So both of your massive opening with astrology happened on a very cellular, embodied level, with you connecting with the sky. And so that happened with your first opening when you were at the rave in the woods, right? And then it happened again with the dream after watching Venus cross the sun. So that's another impetus. A lot of the astrologers in our lunar cycle guides in the inner circle, which is our membership, many of them are encouraging all of us to go and look at the sky, to connect with the moon, connect with the planets, and ask them questions and enter into a relationship with them and see what happens. So it's kind of like bringing this childlike playfulness to it. But it sounds like for you, this has been massively profound.
It has been. And what I encourage, my clients to do and the people that work with me is definitely to go out and to view Venus. All of it good, but if we're connecting with Venus, whoever we're connecting with, and the ancients really believed that the light of the planet coming into your eye was a way to become intimate. So it's actually like getting the light in your eyes of that body, that celestial body. And then the two things I, invite people to do is to slow down and to be willing to not know. So the willingness to not know really drops us out of our head into our body so that we can receive. So I would recommend maybe doing that first before asking questions, or, asking questions, but then leaving that receiving time where there's no agenda and it's just that spaciousness, because I have received so much guidance in that way through that mystery. It's like, then the mystery can land in my heart because I'm not full with any kind of idea or agenda. It's that radical openness.
Yes. And I love the definition of light as information. So if we look at the light of Venus and allow her information to be passed to us, if we're standing in a receptive position, then we will be receiving what she wants to share with us, which is her light, which is amazing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Let's go to the next talking point. So, tell us how we can experience empowerment through following the Venus cycles.
Okay. Yeah. So the main idea, or the main takeaway that I've had through this empowerment, is that sometimes people come to something like astrology and it can be a little overwhelming and it can be a bit heady. There's so much to study. And that, when we create a relationship like this, it becomes wildly accessible, and actually that's what I love about Adam's book. There's actually no astrology in it. You don't need to know any of the signs of anything. You don't need to know any of it, because it's all based on a somatic experience of distance from the earth, speed, brightness, retrograde, forward. So we can experience it completely in an accessible way. And even if you're not using that book, it's this direct experience of watching something that can augment. It doesn't have to replace our astrological studies, which are wonderful. I can totally geek out on those, but it's this wonderful augmentation because it's so present, in being available to us and helping us to ride these waves of transformation, which, the three-part play of the feminine mystery of transformation is life, death, and rebirth. And the death part really isn't taught in our culture, and it's not revered in our culture. And a lot of us have a hard time with it. And something that I came to so clearly in this Venus cycle, Venus is in Scorpio right now. We're going into winter. So there's some underlines in the underworld theme this time around. She's going to meet Pluto when she goes into the underworld. This is a very potent Venus cycle we're in. But really this understanding of it's not a punishment. The death is not a punishment. It's actually a blessing, because that is where our authenticity comes from, is through this process of shedding, shedding the layers, shedding, the too much time in the topside world, too much time thinking and doing, and really coming into this deeper place that's simpler and more in alignment with who we are. There is an empowerment there because we get more of who we are. And that's what our whole, from my perspective, what our whole purpose is, what evolution is calling us to be more of who we are, not from a historic perspective of all our history and conditioning, but from a cutting edge perspective of that mystery of not knowing and showing up authentically as who we're becoming. Which I bring in the evolution points a lot too, the North and South Node along with Venus, because that's such a clear map of where we're going. But, the Venus cycle brings us to that level of purpose. And what did I come here to be? And the Venus cycle, for example, so, just to kind of give a little bit of understanding about that. So whatever sign Venus is in at the beginning of the cycle, it really infuses the entire cycle with that theme and that invitation to understand the feminine more in that way. So in January of 2014, for example, that was the Venus in Capricorn cycle. And that's about the feminine elder. That's really about taking responsibility in a deep way. That was the year that I started my business. So it's like at the beginning of the cycle, we're making this intention, this bold intention. And sometimes, it's an impossible intention, seemingly impossible, in the face of who we've been. We have to stretch. And that's why the story is so potent as a mirror of Inanna's descent. The oldest written story that we have as humans, coming out of Sumeria, is that young Queen Inanna makes an impossible decision. She's going to go to the underworld to visit her sister, and nobody comes back from the underworld alive. So it's like that is the invitation at the beginning of the cycle, is that bold, untested, courageous feminine energy to take a stand for something. Well, if we know that, if we know we're at the beginning of a cycle and that's the invitation, we can rise to that and we can really meet that energy with like, okay, what kind of change am I ready to take on in my life? And then, for the 6 months that she's going down and she's shedding her layers, we can understand, of course, there's going to be obstacles. Of course, there's going to be challenges. Of course, there's going to be setbacks and disappointments. That's part of the process. So we're not daunted by that. We're strengthened by that because we're giving up what is not in alignment. Just like in the story, Inanna has to give up her crown and her necklace and her breastplate and her ring of power. She has to give up these worldly accomplishments that represent her beauty and her power, because she's going to a deeper place. And through that shedding, she's discovering what can never be taken, which is, that is our authentic essence. And so it's that stripping. It's an empowered way, because there's going to be suffering. No matter what we do, there's going to be suffering. So can we meet that suffering in an empowered way that with an openness that helps us become more of who we came here to be, instead of contracting and shrinking. So then, she goes into the underworld and she is disappeared, and which she just did today, I believe. This is the day she's supposed to not be visible. I wasn't able to see her here because of clouds. So we have 100 days now of her being underground.
And Sasha, which cycle are we in right now?
Okay, yeah, I'll go through the cycles. So January of 2014 was Capricorn,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Which was that earthy, manifestation kind of energy. Everything you know about Capricorn, apply that to the heart. So if Venus is the heart, and then it's like the different signs are the different consciousness. It's almost like, dresses she's wearing or something. It's always the heart, but then it's like these different flavors or qualities. And then in August of 2015, was the Venus in Leo cycle, which was a mirror. It was a very powerful mirror of that solar feminine, because Leo rules the sun. And for me, that was the year that I started distributing wellness products, superfood products for this company. And I rose to leadership. I started crossing stages, and I started leading Zooms, and I started doing lives. And it was so in alignment with that Leo, like, here I am, I'm on TV, I'm shining. You know, there was really that invitation for us to step it up in the way that we, used our creative energy in the world. And then from that fire Leo cycle in March of this last year, we went into the Aries cycle. So we have another fire cycle. And for me personally, I found out that company that I was with, I was experiencing a lot of success. And for the first time in my life, a different level of financial success than I had before. Like I had a 6-figure income in sight. It was just like, wow, this is really amazing. But something was not right. It's like that dynamic and what that experience was actually felt like it had eclipsed the other parts of my business and my offering that I love, like the astrology. It had taken over. And so it was actually right during the solar eclipse that I made the decision to make a change and to go out on my own and to do something different and to go with a different company. So it's like I worked with that energy very intentionally because I knew that it was an appropriate time to make that big of a change, especially with the eclipse.
Okay, so we are in Venus in Aries, and Venus has just gone into the underworld. So tell us what that means. So when we can see her, what does that mean? And when she's in the underworld, what does that mean? And filter it through Aries so that we can feel that.
So the energy of Venus and Aries, there's a need to be independent. So part of her cycle, so just to make it the simplest possible, in Adam's book, he breaks it into 13 cycles. So he really differentiates in this way that's quite wonderful if you want to drop into that. And
say the name of the book again.
It's called The Light of Venus
by Adam Gainsbourg.
By Adam Gainsbourg. Yeah. So I recommend that book if you want to get deeper into this, but it's basically morning sky Venus, is the first part of her cycle. And then underworld Venus, which we're in now, she's not visible. And then she's going to rise again on March 4th and be visible again. And she'll make her way for 6 months, climbing to evening star Venus.
And that's 100 days she's in the underworld?
About 100 days she's in the underworld.
Okay,
yeah.
Even that's just kind of epic. It's just cool.
And then she falls out of the sky and starts all over again. And her next cycle will be Venus in Scorpio, and that will start in a year. So we're about now almost halfway through her cycle, So looking at Venus and Aries, there's something really that mirrors that young Anana about the whole cycle. And if you think about it, it's this pretty tantric fusion between, Aries is ruled by Mars. Venus in Mars's sign, that's hot. That is hot. It's like, how do we as women, and this is part of the feminine qualities that have been lost in modern culture. There's a way that the feminine can be receptive as the feminine is, but actively receptive. So it's like she's in her beauty, she's in her sexual power, she's in her creativity, but she's not just sitting around waiting for things to happen. She's not waiting for the man to come. She's like, in her juiciness, you might call it, and she's calling it in at the same time. So it's this active reception, like I'm here, I'm available, come to me. That's more the morning star Venus, which we don't have a lot of models of in our culture. We had the evening star Venus, the sweet, the wise, the queen of heaven and earth, who's so compassionate, and she's been broken open by this experience in the underworld. So she's got this great compassion. We have more of those models, but that morning star Venus, that bravado of the young feminine, not so much. So it's really this invitation for us to be bolder, do something new that's our own. So it's like that sacred selfishness of me first. When I'm first totally holding me, which is, you know, there's some masculine energy there, then I'm more available to help you because I've got me first. So that's the Aries, you know, it's like the first sign of the zodiac. It's like that first impulse for life. And so there's an invitation to claim life and also our bodies. You know, I started bodybuilding in this cycle. I'm 47. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm getting muscles I didn't even know that I had. I was just like, I don't even know where this came from. I was like, I need to start bodybuilding. I was like, where have you been all my life? Like, I just cannot get enough. So that's my example. But it's like, if we each open to our own individual, what's going to bring us into more life? That's the Venus and Aries cycle. And making some kind of bid for that in the spring, thinking back, what did you want? Aries is very much about what you want and that sacred desire. And then what has happened since March? What have you had to give up? What loss has happened? You know, in our community, we just had these incredibly destructive wildfires come through, and so thousands of people lost their homes. So there's been a lot of broken open grief and sadness and, you know, letting go at a very big level to get down to, okay, now how did that original intention change? Now I'm going to go more within. I'm going to get really quiet. When Inanna goes to the underworld, her dark sister Ereshkigal, who's the queen of the underworld, who's in incredible suffering and pain. She's giving birth and she's grieving her husband that's been killed. So she's really in a hard place. And when her sister comes to her naked and bowed low in this ancient story, she fixes upon her the eye of death and she kills her. Just boom, like that's that. And then Inanna's hung on a hook. I mean, this is what it says. It's really intense. And it's that, you know, if you know about the Hanged One card in the Tarot, right? There's this way that we have to shift perspective, like getting really still in that card, like hanging upside down. Something is coming, but it's a different energy. It's a very receptive energy, this underworld time, that's going to help us with the resurrection. Because that's the thing, is we're cultivating that faith that we will be reborn, that we can actually fulfill that impossible intention, that bold intention that we created in the spring. But there's this time when it may seem like it's all lost. You know, it may not be clear. And that is the time, was the most powerful time to find that strength within us and that faith ultimately in ourselves, ultimately in our heart. Even if it doesn't turn out exactly the way that we want it to, it's more that we've created an intimacy and a trust in our heart and in ourselves. And that is more of what we're leading with in our lives. And then when the emergence comes, when we get resurrected, then we begin to get our energy back and we begin to rise and see what do I need to adjust from that original intention. I like to think of that time going down, you know, as the word humble, you know, that humbling, because ultimately we're coming into deeper relationship with power, our own power that comes from within, not power over, but the power of being who we are, the power of making our choice and understanding the power of our choice in each moment that no one can take away from us. No one can take that. That's ours. And that this word humbling comes from the word humus, you know, like humus of the earth. You know, that there's a real beauty in almost equanimity in the ways that we've made ourselves either higher than other people or lower than other people. We've separated ourselves. And there's this great evening that happens when we get deeply, deeply humbled, and then we come back to that intention from that place.
Okay, I would love to check in with everybody who's viewing now and see, can you remember in March if there was an intention that you set or an energy that you were feeling? I mean, when you're talking about the Venus and Aries that I know you talked about Leo, Venus and Leo as the solar feminine. Can you distinguish between Aries and Venus and Leo and Venus? Because for me, I was feeling like it feels similar because I know they're both fire, but what would you say is like a distinguishing factor? And then I'm going to come back to the question for the audience.
Well, okay, so let's just think about the qualities of fire in these two different signs. So in Leo, it's fixed fire, and it's very much about the self. So it's like this fire that is fixed, this fire, that's why it has that kind of theater, acting, creative. It's like fire that is reveling in expressing itself.
Okay.
It's like that's the quality of fire. Whereas Aries, cardinal, you're moving into something new. You're pioneering something new. So I almost feel like whatever we cultivated in that last cycle, that fire, we're now, it's almost like shooting an arrow to go, okay, what am I going to do with those leadership qualities that I cultivated, with that confidence that I cultivated, with those ways that Leo's about courage. Courage comes from the heart, the courage to be vulnerable in showing up, with confidence in who we are. So whatever we like, the fruit of that now gets to come into this next cycle.
Okay, so this is more about action. This is more about actually doing something, creating something with that energy from the last Venus cycle, right? Okay, so can you all think about something in March that you kind of made a leap and went out on a limb and created or started to create in March? And then so what you're saying is now that she's going into the underworld, we may experience a period of time where it feels like that's actually not working out the way that we thought it would. And that we need to just, as long as we can tune into the fact that we're in a process, right? A humbling process of letting go of the things that aren't totally aligned with that vision in the first place, right? That will eventually come out of it. But to keep it in mind, I think this is important for everybody to take a minute and journal with this. And, as Sasha's saying, the working with the cycle, I can see how it would be very empowering for us.
Yes. And, this last cycle, it was right around the equinox. So a lot of people were setting intentions for the spring. It had that spring energy in it. So it doesn't always work out that way. So probably the people watching who are really tuning in to the cycle of the year were setting intentions in the spring, with that equinox energy, with that bursting forth energy. And then that has really been challenged, in the last 6 months, and to not to despair around that, because there's something about when we're really showing up for change, being willing to be wrong. What is our relationship like with being willing to be wrong? I was wrong. I thought I wanted that. Wow, it's actually this. And it's a refining. And for us to really claim that as helpful instead of being defeated by it.
Yes. Okay. We have a question.
Yes.
Some people are confused because they thought Venus was in Scorpio right now. Can you explain?
Oh, this is such a good question. Okay, perfect. Okay. I'm so glad you asked that. Yes. Venus is in Scorpio. So the whatever sign Venus is in at the beginning, at the moment of the 19-month cycle, infuses the entire cycle with the lesson of that feminine energy. But she's still going to be moving through each of the signs as she does. And so we get to have, it's like, okay, one way to think about it would be, we're in the Venus and Aries book. Right now, we're in the Venus and Scorpio chapter in the Venus and Aries book.
Yes. Very good. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So let's talk about the feminine Dharma. How can we uncover our feminine Dharma, and why would we want to do this?
Okay. So the cycle points to our feminine Dharma, and the feminine Dharma is it's our capacity. It's how we're wired for social service or offering, or it's like our larger purpose in the world. And the thing that I love about understanding all the different types of feminine Dharma is there's no one way. For some women, depending on where you're born in the cycle, just like your natal chart, that's yours forever for this life of how do I deepen into my feminine? Well, you have your Venus in the sign and the house, and that's going to give you a lot of information on the personality level. But then if you know what part of the cycle, was she morning star? Was she underworld? Was she evening star? That's going to give you a lot of information about your deeper dharmic feminine, which is how you show up more fully as you are in your authenticity and how you offer it to the world. If you're a morning star Venus and you've got that bold, courageous energy, you're going to do it very differently than if you're an underworld Venus. In the underworld, you're really finding your light within, deep inside you, very shamanic. The women that are born during that part are often deep healers because they have learned to find that source deep within, and not to look to the environment and look to the relationships for the validation of their love, but to be able to find that light deep, deep, deep in the depths. And then the evening star Venus are just, it's like she lights up a room. You know, if you've ever seen evening star Venus in her sweet spot at her pinnacle, which she will be in mid-August of 2018. Whoa, it's like, just gorgeous. She's like a jewel in the sky, you know? And those are the women that just have this infusion of feminine energy and really are making a larger impact in the world often. You know, they're often doing a lot of selfless work or have a big reach, you know, and there's all different ways it can look, but it's really helpful to know where you are in the cycle, because that's an invitation. And so as an example, for me, like I said, I'm a Venus and Scorpio in the first house. Knowing what you know about that, that's kind of wanting to be hidden, you know, and a little shy, a little not wanting to step out there into the limelight. That is not the natural energy of Scorpio. And so there's that, you know, that personality level of wanting to hold back a bit and not put all my cards on the table, you know, that I can feel in my personality. But as an example, my Venus cycle is fullness phase. Boom, right when she hits it high and bright in the morning sky. So I have found through following the cycle that I blossom when I do bold things, even though it can sometimes mortify my personality. Like, I cannot believe I just did that. You know, those moments actually deepen me. And they're actually, in a way, it's like they're an ego burn. They're a way that I'm not clinging to my comfort of who I am. I'm actually opening up to this becoming of who I am, even though it's uncomfortable. And of course, we have to be careful. You know, as I've learned in shame resilience, you don't want to throw yourself off a cliff. You have to take those risks in a way that your system can handle. So I know myself and I know what risks I can take and what resources to get when I'm going to take a risk. But for me, showing up, doing a Zoom like this, or doing Facebook Lives, or, you know, just presenting or getting on a stage, those are all opportunities for me to step into something that is a very different kind of, brings forth different qualities than my personality would if it was comfortable.
Wow. I am continually astounded at how many helpful, useful ways astrology gives us to understand ourselves. It's like we can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So this working with the Venus cycles to me sounds like just a beautiful way for us to do this. And you don't mean that it's only for women, right? This is equally.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously Adam wrote that book, and he's a man. So.
Yeah, Adam is an incredible guide. He has an amazing heart. And, you know, that's the thing, is that we all need it. We all need to cultivate our feminine and our masculine. And I would say for men especially, you know, if you cultivate your feminine, oh, wow, you know, what you're going to be able to manifest in relationships, because you're not going to be asking that woman to be your feminine. You're going to have your own relationship with your feminine. And, you know, same for us women, just assuming, I mean, there's all different kinds of gender pairing. So I don't want to assume everyone's heterosexual, but in that dynamic, you know, when we cultivate both our masculine and our feminine, then we're going to show up in our relationships in a different, more whole way. That's
Totally.
my point. No matter what gender you're loving, which is all good.
Yes, well, I have been loving tuning into the comments from our audience. They're so engaged, Sasha. Thank you so much. Let's see, Ellen says, this is a spot on message for me to hear right now. I literally had thought all is lost feeling earlier today. So thank you both. So Sasha, thank you. It's really landing with everyone. And I really highly encourage all of you, if you're interested, to check out Sasha's work. Sasha, how can people follow what you're doing and learn more from you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.venusrisingnow.com. And that, talks about my offerings. Feel free to friend me on Facebook. I do a lot on my timeline. So, feel free to friend me as Sasha Benedetti. And I share a lot there. And then I also have a page, Venus Rising Now, on Facebook, where I tend to share what's moving through with the Venus cycle somewhat spontaneously. I made a commitment during the Venus and Leo cycle, and I was faithfully blogging for each part of her phase.
Wow.
But with the Venus and Aries, I'm a little more sporadic, but yeah, I love to offer what's coming through, which is pretty appropriate.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Thank you so much. At Astrology Hub, we are very keen on helping all of you align with the cosmic rhythms. So Sasha today is bringing in the Venus cycles, which is just beautiful. And I can't wait to do more with that, Sasha. We also align with the lunar cycles. So this is another cycle that we can see in our sky. We can follow it. We can tune into the energy each month. And so we have a new moon coming up here soon in Scorpio. It's on Saturday. We have a new moon essentials guide. If you're interested in downloading that, it's a free download that will help you to tune into the energy of not just this Scorpio lunar cycle, but all the different new moons and what the energy is for each of those new moons. It gives you journal prompts. So if you want to sit and start to actually work with it, just like Sasha's saying, when we actually connect with the sky and then we start to experience it in our lives and then reflect on that, we get to enter into our own relationship. So I invite you to check out the New Moon Essentials Guide. The link is in the chat and also above this video. That's a free resource that's available to you. What else did I want to say? Sasha, is there anything else that you want to leave us all with today?
Well, I was just feeling into what you just said, and wow, this is going to be such a powerful new moon in Scorpio with Venus just going into the underworld, the moon and Venus together in Scorpio. Wow, what a beautiful opportunity for transformation. And just to reiterate, especially with Jupiter right there, as Venus went down and disappeared, she was with Jupiter. I had the blessing of getting to see that in the morning sky 2 times. And Venus is, going down, Jupiter's coming up. He's rising, and he's like, I feel like he's this teacher of truth, if we had to put a character on Jupiter, especially in Scorpio. And so it's like really this teacher right there holding her as she goes down into this underworld journey where, this support and learning about the transformative power of love. And what a blessing. And just to receive the blessing, in all of it, even though sometimes it's not comfortable, and, just to cultivate that faith. Jupiter's also about faith, that we will be reborn in the spring, and we will be stronger in whatever is alive in our heart will have a chance to come forward. So yeah, I think that's just, the final parting words is to remember the blessing of it, all of it. Yeah.
Sasha, can I just jump on that just real quick? Because we've been talking about this so much in our different groups that we have. And the way that I've been thinking about it recently is like compost. So we take this thing that could be garbage, and we put it into the compost. And I've been thinking of the warming process or the heating process that happens in the composter as like our heart energy, like radiating in there and just warming it up with our love. And so that it is going to turn into rich, fertile, dark, amazing soil for new life to come through. So we're all in that process right now, especially with this new moon that's coming up and with Venus going into the underworld. It's all aligning for us to really get comfortable with the discomfort that can come with the whole process of transformation. But That's why I love that we have this community. That's why I love that we get to tune in with each other and just remember and remind each other that it's all part of it and there is a light at the end of it. And we just, when we work with it consciously, that we get to experience the beautiful flowering that happens over and over and over throughout our lives.
Thank you for that. I love that compost. And thank you for providing this opportunity. It's so important to have connection when we're in those deep places. We are all in this together. So
oh my gosh. One of the
so
main reasons why we created Astrology Hub. Yes, we're not alone. You're not alone. All right, everybody. Thank you so, so much, Sasha. It's been such a pleasure to share this space with you and a pleasure to share this space with you, everybody out there. Thank you so much.
Everybody.
And thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll see you on Astrology Hub TV not next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving for everybody in the United States. So it'll be the following Thursday. I think that's the 30th. We'll be back here live. All right. Aloha to you all. Thank you.